morning.
Hello, good morning.
Look who's mostly on time today.
Amazing. I don't know what magic happened, but here we are.
Here we are. Success.
We did
Hey, you
it.
guys. Good morning. Good morning.
Welcome to Glitter and Gators. We're gonna chit chat today. Today's a chit chatty.
We're gonna chit chat. Yeah, we're just hanging out today, and we're gonna talk about past lives. Oh my gosh, I would love to hear everybody kind of weigh in.
Same.
Mostly on time. It's a miracle,
right? It's not easy to do.
It isn't.
Is everybody in Michigan? Is that what's happening?
Oh.
See all this hi from Michigan.
I bet y'all got some good weather over there in Michigan, you guys.
Isn't it snowy or something already? No?
I don't know. I'm here for it though.
I'm still on my first coffee. I said I was gonna get a second one. I just drink so slow.
Oh no, I've already had two.
Hot. Yeah.
53 degrees in Michigan. Oh,
Dani's so jealous. She's like,
I want so jealous. It's pretty hot today, but it feels good. We're like end of summer vibes. We're not even into fall, and it's October. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't find it, Ian. I can't find it.
I saw it. Ian.
Like Dani sent it to me, but I cannot find it. I don't know if it's just not showing it to me in Canada. It was amazing. It was epic. It was beautiful. Thank you so much.
So good.
Like, oh my god, that has to be Ian. Yep. Amazing. 81 and sunny in South Florida.
Yeah, it's pretty warm here. It's 82. It's hot. Yeah. It's pretty hot. We got that sun going.
It's 82 in Louisiana right now?
Yeah.
Look at this is what we're dealing with. Like, I don't know if you can tell. It's like gray and rainy and
no, it's bright and sunny over here. Bright and sunny. I mean, I can't complain. It does feel pretty good comparatively. It's like, I don't know. It's we call it our false fall, where it gives us a little bit and then takes it back. Gives a little bit and takes it back.
So what's your, oh my God, this dog is like laying near me somewhere, just tooting away. I can't hear it. It's just assaulting my nose. Like out of the clear blue sky. I'm so sorry.
No, this happens. We were sitting on the couch the other day and I was like, Lennon, was that you? She's like, no. I'm like, it's Charlie.
I don't know what is going on with him, but yeah. Oh my God, Nance, I know. I can't even process it. Like yesterday, literally, after everything happened, Peggy and I went to lunch, came home, and Peggy's like, we're going to nap. Now, I do not nap. Can attest, I do not nap. In fact, it almost makes me cranky. Like, I don't want to nap. I feel like I lose time. Like, it feels non-productive. It's a problem. It makes you groggy. So anyways, Peggy's like, well, you're going to nap. Because, like, I needed a nap. I was like a toddler who was overtired. Like, I legit needed a nap. And that bitch stayed awake. I'm like, you whore. I cannot believe she. Anyways, I lay down, went to sleep. And then I was semi-human after. It was a lot. Oh my God. Anyway, distractions aside, past lives. So I would love to know from you, because I feel like we've talked about this like privately, obviously a bunch, but if you can remember when you first either started thinking about it or when it first started feeling like that's where your belief sat, was like a belief in past lives, like where that kind of began for you.
As funny as it is, I know exactly when it happened.
Really?
Like I've toyed with the idea for a really long time, right? But when I was pregnant for Lennon, it was probably like second trimester, maybe into my third trimester, where at night I would start to get panic attacks. Like I felt like I was gonna die. I could like see it happening. Like it was so scary. And so the only thing that would calm me down was like reading something. So I would read about panic attacks, right?
Right.
And then one night I was like I just started thinking, I wish I could remember the train of thought, but I was on my phone and I started looking up reincarnation. And I went down this whole rabbit hole and I was reading these things, and then I could remember since I was really young. Like I can remember sitting, because we had this brown shag carpet. Okay.
Oh
And
God, didn't we all have the brown fucking shag or orange, brown or orange
so,
shag?
yeah, brown or orange. This was brown, the most.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like I still remember like sitting on my carpet and like looking down, but I have had this vision of, it's like looking down, I can see my feet moving in these like slipper type shoes.
Yeah.
Obviously a long dress on these I want to say almost like cobblestone, but that's not quite right. It's like stone floors, like stone and dirt floors,
Like indoor,
kind of like indoors, like kind of scurrying down this hallway, and it feels like stone. You know what I mean? Like it was so strange, but I've had that since I was very, very young. And I started thinking about that, and I just kind of went into this whole space and then like started to focus in on it. And when I started getting really spiritual, kind of back in that whole vibe, it was one of those things where when I would sit and meditate, these things would come up. And I was like, where is this coming from? I don't understand why I feel like I'm in this place. I don't know where this place would be. I don't know. Like, it just, everything started to kind of come together. And I started to realize that I think this is past life shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you?
Funny. I don't have any actual past life memory moments that have ever come up. And the funny thing about it is, I don't know that I ever gave it much thought one way or another. But what had happened was, like, y'all have heard me talk about the soul cards. I have them here just in case anybody doesn't know what they are. I'll show them real quick. But I got these. I had learned how to read tarot, was reading for, like, I was in my phase where, like, I'd bring my cards with me everywhere and I'd just read for anybody and everybody, like, whatever the subject. And I was reading for a friend, and the way I would read with these is I would just pull cards and just talk. And it's very, well, I read for you with these. It's the same.
Yes.
Like just organic, just like we go, go, go. But what's interesting was that I wasn't trying to read past life anything. I used to read these more for like soul deep, like past, in the past, current life things, like past traumas, past things that are affecting you, like deep shit.
Right.
And I was reading for a friend. I can still remember what it felt like because I remember it freaked me out because it came out of my mouth without thinking. But I was like laying the cards down. I'm like, do my talking thing. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's a past life, blah, 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 blah. And then I like stopped and I was like, what? Like I'd never thought about it before then. I'd never, do I believe? Do I not believe? Like, I guess I kind of assumed maybe, but like it just came out. And I was like, I don't know what to do with that right now. So we're going to go over here for a minute and I'm going to process. And then I went back over there, and that was when I started doing past life readings. And the funny thing is like that now this is all I use for that, and has been all I've used for that really since. But it was weird because it happened like I didn't feel like I was in control of it, if that makes sense. Like it just kind of flew out.
It absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
It absolutely
and so now,
does.
like I can do it intentionally, and even then, in the beginning, I would have to do it like that. I'd have to wait for it to come up if it was going to come up. I would tell people like, maybe a past
maybe
life
it will, maybe it won't.
Yeah. And then, so that's kind of how it used to be with these. I would pull them out for friends and I'd be like, okay, this could go to these kinds of places. It could go to those kinds of places. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And that's how I read with these for years and years. And then eventually I kind of would be able to go to these intentionally for that purpose. But it took a very long time before I could do that. But the funny thing is, I couldn't tell you anything about my own past lives. Not a thing.
You've never seen or felt or anything?
I mean, here's the thing. I think what I feel is it's more ambiguous. Like I can tell when I have a connection with somebody that I can't explain. That's where it shows up for me, is like, okay, this is not just a regular bond. Like this is like, I feel like I know you in levels that I shouldn't be able to know you. And
yes,
you know what I mean? And that's happened. Or like the other thing that comes up for me is like, it's kind of like deja vu, but it feels like you're tugging on a strand of a web and you're like, okay, this has got to be some kind of connection from a past life. And there's just people I know are meant to be in my life. And like, I can name like a handful of people who I feel like we will always find each other.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think that's what it is. But I could not point to a single for myself. And I don't even know, I've never booked a past life reading for myself because I don't know. Maybe I haven't trusted anybody to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the right word is for it, but like, I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know if that's even right. Maybe I don't want to know. Maybe part of me is just nervous about it. I don't know. I'd love to hear from people in chat. Like, do you want to know? Like, and I worry that there's enough, this is going to sound bad. I worry that there's enough charlatans out there who will just feed me some bullshit. And I don't want to be fed any bullshit. Like,
Me neither.
So then I'm like, what I have to do is like, I have to get like you to do it or something.
I would love to do it. I
Because
love it.
that's the only way.
Yeah. But you're the only person I've ever let do that for me. Ever.
Really?
Yeah. Because, I have had those couple of things that are just like an unexplained connection, an unexplained like familiarity with something that I've never seen before. There are certain things that I just feel like, how,
Yeah.
and past life readings are some of my favorite. I didn't know if I was ever capable of it until I had one of my friends ask me, and she was like, sit down and try.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit in front of you. And for me, it's the most intense readings because, and I would love to hear like how it feels for you. But like for me, if I'm with someone and I can connect in with them, right? It's like all of a sudden it almost feels like a veil in front of my eyes. And it's like the very first time I did it, I was like, okay, well, there's this strange, like it felt very like a friar, like a priest, like a friar. And I'll never forget, I'm like, but for whatever reason, they're near this place that has this stone. I don't know if it's a wall or something, but there's like algae growing from it. There's water leaking down, so like I could see these like light images, but then kind of go into the actual reading. But like I found it so interesting how many visuals would come up where like I've had, a reading with someone where I'm like, I keep seeing like blood, but like a nurse, like it would be a nurse or someone that's like working with this or like this sort of whatever. And it is the strangest thing how in those instances something has tied into their experience here.
Yeah, it's interesting because you and I both have we talk about this all the time. We have a very similar like way we tap in when we're reading, and we both get like visuals and things like that. So I feel like Peggy talks about deja vu, and the way she describes deja vu is she said whenever she has a flash of it, it's almost like she feels like this is like I said, like plucking that strand, or like for her, it's like, this is like, feels like it's where I'm supposed to be right now. Like the deja vu is like a confirmation that you're where you're supposed to be. And I wonder sometimes if the strand being plucked with deja vu is like you're connecting to some shared experience. Because one thing I've noticed doing past life readings, and maybe it's just because of the way I read or whatever, but the focus of the reading for me almost always is like big life like moments and like the impactful things of any particular life that is echoing into your present. So not just like, I don't want to say just because it's not to minimize, but like not so much who you were, but what you experienced and like why that's impactful then and why it echoes to your present. Because one thing I've noticed reading for clients doing past lives or reading for friends doing past lives is there's this repeating patterning you can tap into and you can find when you, especially if you read multiple times for the same person. Like Peggy, I've done hers a bunch and she has been really good for my, I guess, confidence reading past lives, but doing hers a bunch, like there's certain themes that show up again and again and again, where she's like in this place where she ends up kind of in a mentory teachery kind of place. It's not always where she was, but that's been where she's been a lot. And it's interesting to see that show up in so many different flavors in so many different ways across multiple lives and go, oh, okay, this is like something about your soul pattern or something about your soul inclination, that this is where you tend to lean. And I see that a lot with clients where it's like, you can see, I have a tendency, maybe because of the people I attract to me for readings, where my past life stuff often goes to spiritual places. Like, here's something you were going through spiritually, not so much religiously, although that can
Right.
show up, but more like, I don't know, like spiritually, big spiritual life lessons show up again and again and again. And then you go, oh, this is how this is impacting you today. And this is why this has informed the way that you view things today. That's fascinating to me. But I think we sort of pigeonhole past lives into thinking they're always traumatic. Some of them are. A lot of times they are because they want to
But
connect.
I've
Not
come
all of
across
them.
them that they're not.
Mm-mm.
And that's the whole thing. I find it so interesting that what I'm seeing and what I'm drawing to, and that's always my intention, is like what was there that's either needed, doesn't need to be repeated, is
Yes.
being repeated. Like, where is it? Like you said, pulling those strings. Where are we pulling those strings? And
Yeah.
it's very interesting to see those kind of patterns appear and where they show up in our lives, that it's like, it really makes us think about the cycles that we're in. I think I had another point that I was trying to get to, but it totally got lost.
I'm sorry. I went like on a winding
Halfway
road.
through. I don't even know.
Hopefully it comes back.
It will.
Robin asked in the chat if Toadstool Tarot asked about like hypnosis. I've never been hypnotized. I feel like I would be extraordinarily easy to hypnotize.
You think so?
I think so. I think so because A, I'm very visual. B, I have a tendency to be very easily influenced, like when I'm awake. So I kind of feel like I'd be one of those people that'd be easy to hypnotize. Maybe, maybe not. But it worries me because I have fear of like people in authority positions. Like I'd have to know. I'd have to have like a
Being taken
personal
advantage of
recommendation.
in a
Yeah,
very
I think
vulnerable
so.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah, that freaks me out. It'd have to be somebody I know and trust, or at least that somebody I know and trust trusts, you know?
Or could be, or someone, being able to be in that same room with you, and,
Oh yeah, 100% Peggy would need to be there in the
oh, yeah,
room.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, I wouldn't do it any other way, but like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know about hypnosis. Like, I feel like it's not that I very much believe in hypnosis and the things that, can come out, because it's very it's trance-like, and I experience
Yeah,
trance-like situations. So I'm
yeah,
like, but I think I'm kind of like you. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I want
yeah,
to be in that vulnerable position where I feel like I'm not in control of where it's going.
yeah.
Because again, in like some past life situations, like, I don't really want to know. For me, the
Mhm.
things that I want to know are more like, why do I feel connected? And I have a theory about that, but let me finish this thought. But like, kind of where I'm connected and why I see certain things, why I feel like I've been in places that I've never been before. I've never even been
Yes.
to these countries, but I feel like I've walked these places before. How? So like, that's really where it really interests me. But I do have some theories, and I want to see what you think about this.
I love theories.
When it comes to past lives, could it be possible that these are parts of our DNA? This is memories from the people we came from. Do they
Ancestral.
somehow break down and live within? I mean, technically, break down and live within us, and we're able to recall and see some of these memories. We hold some of this trauma directly in our DNA, so we can access this and we can recognize it in other people.
Yeah. I think this is such a dumb reference, but I go back to it again and again. You know, have you seen the movie Avatar, the first one?
Yes, ages ago.
Okay. Do you remember the tree and this idea of Awa, and they could like connect to the tree and then they could tap into their entire collective ancestral memory
Yes,
pool?
I
Yeah.
remember the connecting to the tree.
Yeah. That's one of the things I 100% think that yes. I think that So I kind of believe that there are multiple pools of data. There's a better word for that, but that we can tap into, right? I feel like we have the astral that we can explore,
Right.
and we've got within that things like the Akashic records. You could think about it that way, or you could think about like the human collective unconscious, or you could think about human collective experience creates an energy that we can then tap into. So that's sort of like where I sort of see like the astral side. And that to me feels very like grounded in the present, maybe a bit of the future, but feels very present to future grounded. Whereas I totally agree that there are echoes. I believe that there are echoes from, yes, from ancestors that we can also tap into. So, because it just doesn't make sense to me why we would have, like you said, kind of not just the generational trauma of the effects of a ancestor or line of ancestors going through an experience. That's one level of generational trauma where it's still impacting us
Right.
today because of culture and race and all these things that
Exactly.
complain. But then also this like layer of literal blood lineage and passing on the idea that like that stuff can be embedded in literally who we are at a DNA level, at a molecular level, echoes of that, because I don't see why certain things would pass down that haven't actually affected us in the present. Like,
Exactly.
for example, like this is such a simple one, but when my mom was pregnant with me, she lived in Tornado Valley in Kansas in a trailer. And like, I still remember this story because she would talk about how tornado warnings would come. And like one time it was pretty bad and they went into the bathtub when she was pregnant with me. My older sister would have been young at the time, pregnant with me. And weirdly, I have this like strange phobia of tornadoes but I didn't hear that story till after I had this like wind fear. But like I've never been personally in a windstorm. Nobody I know has been hurt by a tornado. Like it's not like there's any actual present based reason for
Reason?
that,
Yeah.
except somehow I like pulled in that fear even though I had no reason for that fear myself.
But let me tell you this, having linen and seeing certain fears appear,
Yeah.
I'm like, where on earth did this fear come from? You've
Yeah.
never experienced anything
Yeah.
that would make you have this fear, anything at all.
Yeah.
Like, where do those things come from?
Yeah.
And, it that's one of those things where, like, you can just, I don't know, you can just kind of see those things appear and know that there's just something different about that particular thing, you
Yeah.
know?
And that there could be like an ancestral link that's come through, like, because I think there's too many anecdotal stories of people who have a reaction to something or a fear of something or a whatever when they maybe had an ancestor 3-4 generations back that would have gone through that kind of an experience, but they haven't been through that experience. How do you explain that? And like,
Exactly.
I think that's a huge thing. I'd be curious what your thoughts are. I think we may have talked about this in the past, but I can't remember. But like what your thoughts are generally on the purpose of reincarnation. How do you view the system of reincarnation?
I feel like that it sometimes shifts and changes because or it has, I guess I would say. Because at first I'm like, well, there's obviously something that we need to learn, this,
Yeah.
that, and the other. And I do believe that sometimes that's the case, but
Mhm.
I also feel like there is just a tendency as our, consciousness, right? There
Yeah.
is a need to experience. There is a need to experience everything that we can in every way, shape, and form. And
Yeah.
I think it's a choice over and over and over again. I want
Yeah.
to try this. I want to try this. I want to try
Yeah.
this. There's just something about experiencing the universe that I think
Mhm.
is innately what we're doing,
Yeah.
is
I
just
think there's
experiencing as much as we can.
yes, I love that. And I guess my follow-up question to that, and I've got thoughts too, but I want to hear your thoughts first. Do you think there's a point at which you're done coming back And if so, what is that point?
I don't know. For me, like the thought of not coming back is where the universe stops.
Interesting.
Because without something to observe it, there is nothing to observe.
That makes sense. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I don't think that there's a point in which, okay, so I'll give some of my thoughts. I don't think there's a point in which everybody stops like at the same time. That I agree.
Right. Yeah,
That's
that
when
would
the
be
universe stops
crazy.
existing. But I do think my beliefs sort of have always sat in this place where I believe in kind of two things. I believe in life after death and in reincarnation. And those two things kind of merge together. So I believe there's sometimes an element of choice, maybe even often an element of choice. I think there's definitely an element of choice near the beginning of like, yep, I'm going to come back. I'm going to learn some stuff. I'm going to do more. I think that I feel like we maybe always have a bit of a choice to stay or reincarnate, like however you view that. But I do think there's also times when it's like, girl, you got to go back. You got to do some shit. Like, so I think sometimes it's not a choice. Sometimes we have to repeat lessons, or sometimes we have to integrate something or heal something. I think that's a part of it. But I do think there's a point at which you don't, you kind of are like, I've seen and I felt and I've experienced and I've learned. And now I'm going to kind of rest or integrate into that cosmic whole energy and like become a part of that and like be there in that space. So I think both things exist in my belief structure. I think it's like coming back, but then also sometimes not, or sometimes just feeling done or being done. Not in a way where we stop, I guess, growing or evolving, but I think that it's almost like when I hear people, I don't believe it's so funny. I feel like I have a hard time with like this like 5D concept and all this stuff, but I'm sure it's very similar to what I'm describing, because I almost feel like we evolve spiritually or on a soul level, and then at a certain point we're like, okay, like we're way up here now, like we've seen and experienced so much that now we can then give back in a different way, like be a guiding energy or guiding light in other ways. Does that make sense?
It does. So like, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I had this one friend that she used to say it all the time. She's like, just randomly, she'd be like, whew, this is definitely my last life, because I ain't coming back to this bullshit.
Like,
Like she used to say shit like that all the
reality.
time. I'm tired. And I'm like, you're 20 years old. What the hell are you talking about? But it's one of those things where I think you get to a point again where it's like you feel like I'm done with this. And it's like for you, and that's what I mean, like the universe ends for you there. There's something I do like the idea of kind of going back. For me, it almost feels like going back into that primordial pool, right?
Yeah, I like that idea.
Where you become one with everything. There is no regeneration. There is oneness at that point, almost. You know, like
oneness.
Like the universe is over for you. You are now
part of it.
The collective. You are of the primordial soup.
Which actually leads to an interesting thought. What if, for those of us that think about things like the Akashic record or even ancestral memory, at what point are we tapping into memory or record versus tapping into that primordial pool that maybe contains those souls that have joy? Are we in communication with something more sentient than maybe we think we are? Does that make sense?
That makes just like so much sense. Like, did you not see the light bulb go off in my head? I totally did. Like that makes so much sense, because again, like we talk of, and I know I describe it like this. Sometimes you feel like you walk between worlds. You know what I mean?
I hope I'm the dumpling part of the soup. I'm sorry, I got distracted. Wait. I hope I'm the dumpling part of the soup.
Oh shit.
No, walking between two worlds. I did hear you. I didn't fully absorb it. Can you remind me what your point was there?
No, because I always feel like there's a way when again, kind of going in that trance, when really reaching out and try to connect with the other side, if you will, it feels like you're able to walk between two worlds, but there does always feel like there is a direct path, like a guide being like, this is like, here, it's this, like someone that can literally, or something that can literally just like show, like you said, if you're that in that primordial soup, if that's where we go, it's like, oh, this is what you need. They have everything. They are everything, you know?
Yes. Like, and it's also like, then that brings me to the next question, which is when I've had such intense experiences with, we'll call them spirit guides, where do they come from? If not previous reincarnated over and over and over again souls who are now in a position to give back or offer support or offer help or offer that guiding light. So we get into some really interesting territory when we think like, okay, well, what happens when we are in communication with that and what that looks like? Like one of the things, like I think that thought can become sentient in a way. Like, let me see if I can explain this. You know
It's
how
kind of
there's
called like a
times.
tulpa. Like when people talk of tulpas, have you ever heard of that?
No, what's that?
Where it's like bringing a thought to life.
Maybe. Yeah, because I'll describe what I'm thinking. There's certain times when I feel like we tap into, as a conscious present community globally, we tap into some sort of shared energy or shared experience. And in that point, when things like that, when certain things happen that kind of bring us all to the same rough vicinity of the same wavelength of thought, I feel like we are all more connected than we are the rest of the time. So
Yes.
I guess what I mean is like, I had this experience. Again, I may be repeating myself. Apologies if you've heard the story from me before, but like I was in my early 20s and it was Christmas time and I was spending some time at one of my partner's homes. And it was Christmas Eve, Christmas morning. We all got up and we were all just kind of chatting. And I was talking to friends, like, you know how you do on like Christmas Day, whatever. And it turned out like everybody I knew, like, and this was when my circle was much, much bigger, less discerning. Everybody I knew, I swear to God, that particular Christmas Eve that I talked to had an apocalyptic dream the night before. Like,
You have told me that.
have I told
Oh,
this story?
yes.
And I just remember thinking, that was just weird. Like, obviously, the world didn't end. Everything was fine. It didn't feel prophetic, but it felt like, how could we have all had, in various flavors, the same dream? And that sort of formed the basis for my belief that there are certain things that kind of, just because we're all maybe experiencing something sort of similar at sort of the same time, that allows us to all tap into something around the same.
Okay. In that same vein, I
Yeah.
have watched documentaries about how when something big is invented, it's usually done by more than one person at the
At the
same
same
time.
time. Yeah. Like
Like
electricity.
electricity. Exactly. You
Yeah.
have, it was like, it was a couple other things. It was so interesting. Like these people are across the world, but if you've ever read Big Magic,
Yeah.
she
Love that book.
speaks about how like when something is presented to you and maybe you don't grab it, you'll notice that someone else is doing it or has
Yeah.
already done it.
Yeah.
Or
It's almost like a
when
muse, like the muse visits you, and if you
the
don't
muse
grab it,
visits you, and if you don't
I'm going to
grab
visit
it, it,
somebody
it will
else.
go on to be created.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just interesting to me because if we believe that there are certain things like, and I think there's certain events where I've really felt it palpably, always feel it around the holidays. And I recognize that different cultures are celebrating in different ways, but there's a lot of corresponding holidays all around the same time that have similar themes and vibes, even though they're very different. And obviously that's not worldwide, but there's enough that I feel like we get to
There's
tap into a
enough
bit of that.
to have
Yeah.
such
And
a
I
huge impact.
remember how it felt on 9/11. Like, it felt like everybody was experiencing this collective thing, and it
The
wasn't just
air felt like it
West.
sucked completely out of the sky. Like
Yeah.
the it's like the air was still. I'll never
Yeah,
forget it. We were at school.
me either. Yeah, me either. Or like even like in the 80s, I feel like one of the things that gripped everybody was the OJ Simpson trial. I remember that was like such a huge deal.
I remember watching that.
So do I. Yeah. And it's just like there's certain things where I feel like, and unfortunately, a lot of them are negative, but I feel
It's
like there's a
okay.
lot of times. Yeah, go for it. I just feel like there's a lot of times where like the globe kind of taps into something around the same time. And so if I believe that that's possible, then I also have to believe that there is a thread. So it's why I kind of, I think, see our connection with other humans on like a web. And then I also see our connection with our current, past, present, future self and past lives, ancestors, etc., also on a web. So like which strand we're plucking and what it's connected to, sometimes maybe for me is less important than that we're connecting to something.
And there's so many things that go into like physics and all this stuff where again, like we experience time as linear, but
Yeah.
it's like there are some times where I feel like it's almost like time collapses on itself for a moment.
Yeah.
You know, and you
Or
can
like it pauses,
experience that,
slows
or
down, and we're all
yes.
walking through a time shift.
Yes, or
Or
it's like
like
when you feel
time kind of
connected
feels
to
like
a
it speeds up. Like, look at the
yes.
pandemic. The pandemic is a perfect example actually of us all going through a global experience at the same time, having similar whatever, and I think we were all much more connected during that time.
Yes. In a
Yeah.
weird way.
And everybody experienced time differently. I thought that was really interesting. Most people you'll talk to will say that the pandemic time period, time was functioning differently.
It really
Either
felt
it was
that way.
slow or it was fast. Something was different about time,
It's
like
like
the world
it's
was at a
one of those where it
standstill.
felt so slow, but then all of a sudden it was years ago, and it's like,
Yes.
how? That was last week.
100%. That's exactly what it was. It was like when we were in it, it was slow. And then as soon as it was over, it was like we all just were like, "Oh, that was a blink of an eye." Like, "What?"
Yes.
Like,
Okay,
"What?"
I'm gonna switch before like, this is what I was looking
I
for.
have the same
Okay.
ones.
Oh, yeah, the portals. It made me think not only because, matter of fact, we use this when we did our readings, but
Mhm.
what you talked about the pools, right? I talked about the pools, but
Yeah.
is that portals? Like, you ever read a book? What book did that? I know I'm reading Hollow Places right now by T.K. Fisher, and it's the same idea. And I can't remember the other book that I read. I think it's really popular, so people are probably going to scream about it. But they go into this hole in the wall that they find,
Mhm.
and they end up opening this door, and there are islands as far as the eye can see, all with doors on them. But there's no place for this tunnel to be where they are. So they don't know where they are under the ground, like in this space. Like,
Oh,
there's
that's so
no
cool.
way that they could be somewhere. And then when they get to the end, there are all these things, and they are starting to go down into the holes. So I'm
Wow.
like, is it other universe? Oh, the magicians.
I haven't seen it or read it.
You haven't read it? Oh my God. Okay. I think it was the
I've got
magicians.
it on my
There are
Audible, I think.
there are like wells and portals. So like you go in there and you're in a different world. Or was it his Dark Materials? Shit. Now I'm
Wait,
just
I've
mixing.
I've listened to his Dark Materials is the Golden Compass series, right?
Yes.
I've listened to that. I don't remember it from that, so it might be the magicians. Mind you, my memory for shit is like literal garbage. So
Well, I know that his Dark Materials is kind of about the soul
yeah.
in general. But there seem to be different worlds, but maybe I'm thinking it's got to be the magicians. I haven't
Maybe.
seen the movie. I haven't seen the TV show, but but I've read the book. So
Yeah.
I don't
The
know.
portal thing is really interesting because in fact, when I was doing, how do I describe this? I'm trying to remember where this came from because I have a very strong visual. It either had to do with past lives or there was some sort of thing I was doing with the soul cards. I wish I could remember. I often use visualizations in my readings. So, like, for
Mhm.
example, when I'm reading for somebody and I know I'm going to go deep, I will, even if it's like a quickie reading, it's now ingrained, it's automatic, but I will visualize a round room, door for the other person, door for me, pedestal kind of in the center where the reading's going to take place. And have I told you this before? I
No,
probably
but
haven't.
it's
Oh, okay.
funny how I do something similar. Okay.
Do you really? Okay. So not surprised. But what I would do in the beginning is because I found that whenever I would read for people, I'd often make them cry or I'd go to really deep places. And so I wanted to make sure I had consent, not just them telling me it was okay, but I needed something deeper. So I would envision this room, like each of us having a door, and I'd step into the room and then I would kind of check out what was happening with the other person's door. Sometimes I'd have to go knock, like visualize myself knocking, and then I'd see if they open the door wide open. Do they come into the room? Do they stay? Is the door just open a crack? And that would tell me kind of where I'm at energetically with engaging with them in the reading. So I've done that for decades, okay? But the other visualization I remember, and I'm trying to remember if I started this maybe in the beginning when I was doing past lives or something, but I would literally envision myself, if I was reading for myself or like my client. I'm trying to remember what the context was, but walking down a hallway and just lined with doors. And it's so funny because I just rewatched Beetlejuice recently and it kind of reminds me of that. But anyways, walking down a hallway and lined with doors and then just choosing a door. And that's what we're going to explore today, kind of thing. It's just funny because you were just talking about that. And I'm just like, that's so interesting because I do wonder if when we're doing that kind of thing, are we going in through portals?
Or we're going in through portals. Is that what it is? Are we walking that other plane and popping into this point in time? And it's funny, while I do something similar, I don't imagine so much like the interaction in that way, but like before I start any reading, I will read, if I'm doing a video reading, I guess I'll say, because I'll do it, sitting with the person otherwise. But like if I'm doing like a video reading, I'll read what they wrote to me, take some deep breaths, and then I guess I kind of envision sitting in the room with their energy. And that's where it's like a push and pull. Like it's like almost like, where can I push? Where can I not? And that's how I choose my decks. I will sit with that energy, sit in that energy. And I'm like, where are we pushing and pulling? Do I need something this? Do I need something that? And like, I start to
like
almost
feeling out their energy,
feel out that energy and see where I need to go, what I want to do, where we need to be. And I really sit with that beforehand. And so it's quite interesting. That's what I mean, like how it's so similar. It's like for you, it's like the knocking and seeing where they are. For me, it's like literally almost like a cat or a dog kind of making their bed. I want to see where it's at, what needs to be pressed, what needs to be left alone, what needs to,
tactile. Yeah. Interesting. And it's funny because like you brought this deck out. Is it because I think I distracted you, but is it because of the whole, like, I think her premise with this was eyes, it's called Portals of Presence. And I think her premise was that its eyes are the portals to the soul. But I find that portal energy is so interesting.
It is so interesting. This one, because I feel like it's impacted, like, because it's not something that I use all the time, but when I'm doing anything past life, I want to pull this and I want to pull the Marguerite Peterson.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
It's so abstract. There's something about the primal energy, right? Where it's tapping in and it's like every time you look at this, it's like, it's true. You have those eyes, but it's like it hones you in, it brings you in to these certain places. And it does, like, I can't stop kind of going back to that pool style reference, which again, wormholes, portals, it's all the same to me energetically in a way. Like they all feel very similar when I think about them.
Wait, have you ever done any reading into like quantum physics and like some of the more woo-woo theories around quantum physics?
I've watched a couple of things. I've read a couple of things. Some of it gets really lost on me, but I find string theory interesting. A parallel universe kind of things kind of dropping down, different dimension. Like there's so much to it. And I don't know why that feels like this spirituality trying to become tangible.
Yes, it 100% does to me. It feels, and there's a couple books out there that kind of dip into the correlation between like magic and how we view like even sympathetic magic, and then what happens or what we know about the quantum interactions between things. But what fascinates me about quantum physics, and it started with that movie What the Bleep Do We Know, which I know, and the book that has like questionable reactions sometimes from I'll say scientific community, but because there's a lot of like spiritual ideas they were putting forward. But if you've never watched that one specifically, I think you'd really, really enjoy it, because if you use it as a way of like thinking about how you might think about these theories, but they basically take quantum theories and then they explain what the theory is and kind of how it works. But then they also talk about what implications it might have on a human or spiritual level, which is what's interesting. So it kind of ties the two together.
Wow.
It's really cool. But like, and what it's really talking about is like creating your own reality. And there's a lot there that like speaks to manifestation and things like that. But what catches my attention the most is the idea that, like you said, we view time as linear. We go past, present, future. We move from point A to point B to point C. But there's a lot of things about quantum mechanics or quantum physics that like I think makes you question if that's actually true, because it's just because that's how we tend to observe time doesn't mean that's how time's actually moving. And so it's a really interesting concept to think that maybe we think of it like past lives, but what's really happening is that we are like, same thing with like, I think when you do predictive readings, are we
We're
actually like imagining a
in
future,
two
or are we,
spaces at
yeah,
once.
or are we kind of sort of dipping into that energy and actually pulling truth out of that energy, just like we can pull truth out of the past? How is it different really at the end of the day? Are we, and it's a primordial changing, fluxing energy, the future, but like, because obviously everything we do shifts and changes and moves it, but like, can we tap into what that is
Well,
being
if you
created right now?
believe in parallel universes, everything has a reaction and
Yeah,
spawns off a totally different world, if you think
100%.
about it that way. So
Yeah.
obviously, we can dip into that, and that does become a reality in some way, shape, or form because we have just created it. If you're going with that kind of theory, you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
totally. It's
So,
like,
like,
you've seen oop arts? I'm sure you have, because we love this ancient alien shit, right?
oh, yeah.
Oop arts are like out of place artifacts. Like when you see something that
Yes,
looks like a
yes,
light
yes.
bulb in hieroglyphics in Egypt, and you're like, how
How?
is that there when, and you see things like that, you're like, and I get it, we can logic away some of this stuff for sure. But like when you
Sure.
see something that looks like an airplane or a helicopter in like ancient Egypt carvings or whatever, and then you're like,
Or like,
what are
what
we
is it?
tapping into exactly?
Where is it at? In South America. I can't remember the name of the place.
Not Machu Picchu.
No. It's where they found, I think that's where they found that airplane thing
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that they actually rebuilt, and it is aerodynamic.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like, come on now. Come on now. Or like there's you see things that were made and they're cut, like we measure them with today's technical tools, and something was cut with like laser perfect precision, and we're saying you did that with a hammer and chisel.
And
Like,
lasers can't even do it nowadays.
I know I'm totally rabbit holing us, but like
I
I
know,
think
but
about
this,
that and I'm
like,
like, but,
but
but when
how?
that's happening, but are we tapping, like, so if that's the case, like if we see that there's possibility that we are tapping into future energy, then it's not that far of a stretch to go we're tapping into parallel or past experience.
Well, and if you think about it in terms of time travel, is
Yeah.
that time travel?
Right. Is that kind of that same
Is
idea?
that tapping in time travel? You
Like
know?
when you're doing a reading and you can visualize something about where somebody's at and where they're going, you know,
Yes.
and you
Where
can
does
go,
that come from?
you can picture that person in in a scenario in the future, and you translate that in your reading, especially if you read in a visual sense, because I know we both kind of have that happen. But where does that come from? If not, like, am I opening a window somehow and viewing? You know what I
Okay,
mean?
so okay, let me dive right in right there,
Yeah.
because that made me think of the time that I read for someone, and I'm like, I'm seeing like white tin. I don't know why. It's
Yeah.
tin. It looks like
Yeah.
corrugated, like whatever. Anyway, that ended up being right behind her house. Okay. So
Okay.
again, where, how, why? But I have also done experiments and done these things more than once, where I'll be talking to someone over, video or Zoom. I've done it with quite a few people before, where they're like, can you, like, what are you feeling in my space, in this
Yeah.
area? And there's
Yeah.
been more than one time where I'm like, okay, I feel like there's something up in a closet. Do you have a closet that has something in the right hand corner? Like,
Yeah.
it's almost like stepping in and looking around.
Well, that's like
And
basically remote viewing, right? Like
it
that's
is, it's like
basically,
remote
yeah.
viewing. It's almost like if you were to have your hands up and you could almost feel where like heat is pulling in a certain
Yes, yes,
direction.
yes. Or
It's like
smells.
yes, smells, or you know, I don't know, a pull. That's why I'm like, you can't convince me that energy is not real. Matter of fact, I saw something the
Yeah.
other day that talks about how when you mess with a certain kind of like electron, I'm going to butcher this, but just the general idea of the same idea. If you mess with something over here, its partner, or there is something that's going to react that's part of that electron, and it then creates this whole chain reaction. Like,
that's a quantum theory. That is quantum physics.
Okay,
you need to watch What the Bleep Do We Know. You need to watch it.
I've got to now.
Yeah.
I'm in it to win it.
It's old, but it's really, really good. You need to watch it because it will like literally describe that. Like they have done experiments. Yeah, quantum entanglement.
Quantum entanglement. Yes.
They've done experiments where they took I think it was like a black box. How did this work? They had meditation groups like completely across the world from one another. And they were trying to make something impact this one, and it impacted this one. And like there's stuff they've done like that where they have legitimately tested these theories and shown. The entanglement theory for me is very, very interesting because we see this in humanity when we see twins having very, very similar experiences even when they've never met, and like all these kinds of things. Like there is an entanglement there. Like how do you explain that? And there's just some really wild shit that I think quantum physics illuminates that we can't explain the way that we typically conceptualize things like time and things like multiple dimensions. And I think the reason I like What the Bleep is because it kind of gives you ways to it's very visual. So it gives you ways to visualize these theories, like how they operate. And it's very, very, very cool and really easy to understand. And that just, so fascinating. But like what I keep coming back to, what I always come back to is like, we know for a fact that this has been said again and again in the scientific community. We know for a fact that our minds, our actual brains, that we only use a tiny percentage of our capability. And one of the founding beliefs I have around why sympathetic magic is powerful and how it works is that we are intentionally using parts of our brain to quietly work in the background, because we've done this sympathetic magic to quietly work in the background and work towards whatever we're trying to accomplish. And it's how I conceptualize magic and spellcraft when I talk to somebody who's non-witchy, non-pagan, whatever, and I want to kind of explain, this is how I believe it works. But anyway, so I feel like if there's we have all of this ability to process data that we don't use consciously. So how do we not think it's possible that that part of our brain is perfectly able to understand past lives, future, how to tap in, how to do that, and that those of us who intentionally try to learn how to do that are just building connections into those parts of our brains?
Yes, and I mean that happens. The more you do something, the more you try, they do build neural pathways. Like that's a fact.
That's why you can learn to be intuitive. That's how you can learn to be psychic. That's how, all of that.
Exactly. And I feel like some people, again, it could be from that DNA line where there is something that has already been opened and you're just able to tap into it because maybe you got it from the right number of people, that it's like you can naturally expand, naturally tap into these things. I still think it can be done by anyone. But I do also believe that there are some people that it happens no matter if you wanted to or not, you know?
Well, that's why you have, like, I think kids especially, I think, are much closer to those like connections. And I think that's why you have kids who are like randomly seeing dead people, like legitimately, or randomly seeing ghosts, randomly having experiences.
Same thread. Have you heard all the stories of reincarnation and how almost scary perfect some can be?
What do you mean? Like, give me an example, I guess.
Okay, so there was a little boy that was born who kept saying that his real mother lived in such and such a town.
Yeah.
And had, this, that, and the other. And it was in I want to say it might have been in India. And they traveled to this town and she was there. This little boy who was born and raised knew this woman, her name, where she lived, what happened to him as her son, knew all of these things and just wanted to go visit her. Now, there was a little boy, I think he's from Louisiana, matter of fact, that since he was little, he kept saying that he died in a plane crash.
Yeah.
And he would draw pictures, and he talked about these people and his name that he was like, I don't remember, but he kept putting the third, and they were like, buddy, this is your name. You're not a third, whatever. Anyway, come to find out, there was a man who died in one of the wars, maybe World War II, in a plane. He knew the airplane. He knew the people that he served with. He knew his mother's name. He knew how the plane went down, where the plane went down. He knew all of these things, and it's all documented. He doesn't really remember it anymore now, but he had very vivid dreams. He would wake up in terror and things like that with this airplane that he kept drawing, that he flew.
It was just freaking wild. But that
I've looked into a lot of these, and it's amazing. So have you ever looked into that at all?
I haven't looked into it, but now I really want to.
Oh, you should. So good.
I'm sure I've heard some of that sounded familiar. Like, I know these things have happened, but I haven't like read about it thoroughly. Renee's comment here is so interesting. I have a Reiki scientific study that shows Reiki sent to medical patients affected their outcomes better, except they didn't know the patients were from 50 years in the past. Documented outcomes. So when we're talking about time not being linear, that is so fascinating.
That's fascinating. And then there's it wasn't the Project Paperclip. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. It's either Project Paperclip or something of the similar, where the US government, that's where they came with the men who stare at goats, where they were doing experiments on remote viewing, on energy movements, on psychic abilities, on all of this stuff.
Oh, crazy. Okay, so Nomi says there's real academics studying children with past life stories at University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies. I just want to know that they have a whole division of perceptual studies. That's incredible. Probably elsewhere too, but this is the one I know of. Division of Perpetual Studies. Are you writing that down?
Okay, there is one man that he documented over 1,000 cases where he not only documented the reincarnation stories, but he actually did the research to connect actual things to it.
Wild.
So for me, it's like when you have this kind of documentation, these kinds of studies, like, how do you explain that when a little child knows things about stuff across the world sometimes, or, this, that, and the other, where they're naming people or their experiences. There was one, they kept saying about a fire. There was a woman who had actually died in a fire. Like, it's so wild to hear these stories. And like, I started down those rabbit holes literally from having panic attacks and feeling like I had a sense of closing in. And it just kind of freaked me out. And I was like, but there's got, like, why is it a tunnel? Why is it this? Like, why am I seeing this? So it's so interesting. It's so interesting.
That's amazing. I literally
experienced altered states. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. For years, like I don't know about hundreds of years, I might be being dramatic, but certainly for many decades, the government has absolutely been studying these things, has absolutely been diving into these topics, because of course, anything like that, I mean, obviously the government's usually looking for how to control people, whatever. Okay. Yeah. But the fact that there is, I think it's always very interesting that it seems like there's solid scientific foundation for a lot of these principles, but then they just never get very far. And people get ridiculed out of the scientific community for even exploring this stuff. But there's so much anecdotal experience that I think there's too much to disregard. Right.
And I think that's the main thing. This is not something that's only been documented for hundreds of years. This has been, they have had oracles from the beginning of time in every civilization, in every way, shape, or form. You can't tell me that this is something new, that people are just being delusional. It doesn't track. It doesn't track.
Oh, I love that quote. Magic is just science we don't know yet. I mean, That's
Yes.
100% true. We went to where were we? Peggy and I were at like a fair. It was probably our Pacific Northwest exhibition happens up here. It's like a big fair thing. And they have exhibition halls and they had a Star Trek exhibit. And so we got to walk through and they had these displays and they had Star Trek paraphernalia from like the original Star Trek like in the display, right? And like some of that stuff looks like legitimately the everyday shit we're using today. Like they had these devices. I can't remember. I remember seeing specifically. It literally looked like a cell phone, like a flip phone. I'm like, well, that's now in our past. That's not even current science. That's like already.
Exactly.
But it was before that stuff was made. It's interesting. Like when you read old sci-fi books, if you read like sci-fi books from like the 1950s, it will blow your freaking mind because half that shit's happening now, and you're like,
no, it's like, but they are the ones who put the ball rolling.
yeah,
They had the thought, and someone somewhere fatefully connected. And it's like, it's so funny because I'm wondering if some of the things have been created because people have read this and started working on it.
yeah.
Or is it one of those things where someone has created this item not knowing that
Somebody else imagined it.
somebody else imagined it in a sci-fi novel from the 1920s? You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Like,
right. Like it's
never
interesting
known.
because I feel like we have a pool of wisdom. I'll say wisdom. We have a pool of wisdom that we can all access. And like how I don't know, I just think it's super interesting. Oh, this is interesting. Sorry, I got distracted reading this comment, but I think that's interesting. Joining late, but I heard that birthmarks you have in your body or how you died or injuries in a past life. I was stabbed in the back of the neck or died during the atom bomb. Like crazy, but like that makes sense too. Like maybe there's
But
echoes in our body.
I've seen so many. I know someone that has a birthmark on their chest, you know,
Yeah.
where it looks like they would have been stabbed. I have one through my like on my thigh.
Yeah.
Not my thigh. I'm sorry, my calf.
Yeah.
That is like this very odd shape, but like, who's to say that wasn't a pitchfork through the thigh? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you know, something like that. I've heard that a lot, and I find that very
Yeah.
interesting, especially some of the people who have followed reincarnation and have found things to tie up. So
Yep.
again, there's so much anecdotal things. It's like, okay. I'm sorry, we're about to go way on a tangent. Okay, so
This is my favorite part
it's
about
the
these
same
chats.
idea. I hear people talking all the time about, okay, UFOs and alien things, as well as ghosts and spiritual, you know, phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
Things going on in that sense. And it's like, you can't catch them on anything.
No.
You might catch one, two things, but it's about the experience. You yourself have had this experience. There is no way to replicate it. There is no way to. It's kind of like the theory that it's meant for you or
Yeah.
whoever's having the experience. So people who now they're like, we have phones everywhere. We have this everywhere. But you hear people saying all the time, when you're in that experience, time stops. You're not thinking about, let
Yeah.
me grab my phone. You're not thinking
No.
about, let me do this. You are in this unexplainable moment where it feels like time stops.
Yeah.
And you hear of people
Yeah.
losing time. You hear of people, you know, doing shit like that all the time. It's like, what are those moments? Or
Yeah.
like you said, are we in these like portal spaces that kind of take us where we are in between worlds, or where we are experiencing something from another dimension, another life, another
A
space and
parallel
time?
universe? Are we entangled with another self in a different timeline? Because here's the thing, like in these moments that we have that are like that, where we like, I don't know about you, but I've had so many times in my life where I'll just freeze and I'll be like, I just did this.
Yes.
It's not just deja vu, it's stronger than that. It's like, I literally just did this and I'm doing it again. Like, it's hard to describe. It feels like I'm on a loop, like I'm repeating.
Yes,
And I'm like,
almost
but
like the Groundhog Day. I'm like,
yeah.
I've had times where I'm like, I've lived this day before.
Yeah.
You know, like it's
Yeah.
just,
God, the comments are amazing. I'm loving all of it.
oh my
so
God.
much.
I know everything's going so fast. I'm so
Oh my God,
sorry.
no, maybe
Whatever we're
literally
missing.
Nomi, we literally, Dani brought that up earlier. We literally used that example earlier in this conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I like this also. A friend described collective unconscious. This is Renee. As a water well. Surface is conscious, below surface is unconscious. Groundwater connecting to all other water as collective unconscious. Yes.
Oh,
I love that visual. That makes so much sense because like you're pulling in something from further down, like from further out. It's I have a hard time believing humans are and animals and life in general does not have a connected spiritual component. I just have a hard time seeing how that could be possible, that we are not all connected in some fashion.
There's like, for me, there is no question. There's no way that we're not. And the reason I say that is because, okay, you know, people talk a bunch of shit about psychedelics and this, that, and the other. They've been used from the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And they've been used for that exact purpose. You will hear time and time and time again from people all over the world, all kind of backgrounds, every walk of life. They will come out and say everything is connected.
Yep. I was actually just talking to my son about this, like literally Monday I was talking to him about it, and he was describing some of his experiences, and we were just talking about it, and I was like, it legit sounds like a way to, because I said, well, do you think it's, because he was describing his experience, and I said, do you feel like that what's happening in these experiences is that you are I'm going to say like in an altered state, or do you feel like what's happening is that the usual walls or structures that keep you from seeing things as they are being like dissolved away? And he said, I don't know that I can put into words. He's like, everybody I've talked to, he said, that have had these experiences, like they are really impactful when you're in them and they do stay with you, but to try to describe it to somebody is not possible.
Where it's like, there's no way to
like,
describe the connectivity. There's no way to describe the way it feels. And they said, like,
yeah,
once you feel it, it's really hard. Like you eventually look, I mean, everyday life comes back in and you lose that, but there's always that memory that something is there. And it's like, they can continue to return there through the, you know, it's just so interesting.
I think hearing him talk about it, like legit, I was like, oh my God, I get it. Because, you know, there's so many references, cross cultures to, what did you call them? Psychedelics. I think I keep calling them like hallucinogen. That's not right.
But I mean,
right, but same. But like when I hear people describe their experiences, or when you think of like indigenous practices and you think about what people have described, even down to like, what's the term for it? And this may not be even a correct term, but like dream journeying, or what am I thinking of?
Like lucid dreaming.
Vision questing. I was thinking of
vision questing,
but I don't know if that's even like a correct term.
Okay, I know what you're talking about though. Yes, they go on their spiritual quest.
Yeah, and then they have like some sort of vision or unfolding, and we've used westernized examples or whatever of these practices in like modern media, movies and TV shows and things like that. Like if there was one in Buffy that I thought was really cool, things like that. But like there's something shared experience about all these different cultures having practices like this. What was the benefit if not to, like, I feel like, shamanic journeying. Thank you. I've actually done a guided shamanic journey by a proper shaman, and it was an incredible experience because there's a lot of stuff in shamanic practice around like soul retrieval and like accessing pieces of yourself that have kind of drifted away, things like that. There's too many cross-cultural global examples of similar practices that do or have a similar function for me to think that there is not a factual basis. People are having too many repeatable similar experiences. It's like what they say about science. If you can do the same thing again and again, and people are having the same kind of reaction to it again and again and again, that to me is more than just anecdotal. At that point, it begins to take on weight and water.
You know, someone could argue, oh, but it's the same drug over and over, but it's not. This happens over different substances in different cultures in different ways, but they all say the same thing. Most of the time,
Why are they having the same? They're coming to the same realizations. They're coming
to
the
same realizations. That's what I mean. Like, it may be Mother Gaia, it may be God, it may be Jesus. They're having these experiences, but it's all the same thing. We are connected. We are one. We are part of this entire world. There is no separate. When you breathe, the world breathes, you know, and that's why I'm saying, like, when I think of past lives, I feel like we have this innate thing that we want to experience all these things. We want to continue. And when we pull back, it's a totally different space because we have to be able to observe in order for this to continue. It's like a weird, because we are one, right?
Yeah.
So it has to continue if we are one.
100%. There's I was really transformed by the practice of yoga nidra, which is yoga sleep when it's practiced a particular way. And the traditional methods, which are based in spiritual tradition that goes way before, obviously, the West was doing anything with yoga nidra and made it this like kind of popularized thing. When it's done according to those traditional methods, you guide somebody through. I've taught teachers, I taught other yoga teachers how to do yoga nidra because I learned the traditional method and then like studied it and like was able to translate and teach it. But what's interesting about it is that it's been scientifically studied that what you're doing is you're guiding people. If you do it properly, you're guiding people through you're taking them into deeper and slower brainwave patterns. So the same brainwave pattern that is associated with REM sleep and dreams is what Ange said, reminded me of it. The same brain with and it's been years since I taught it now, but I want to say it's theta. There's alpha, beta, theta, delta, I believe. There's one that exists right before deep sleep. I'm pretty sure that's REM, and I'm pretty sure that's theta. I could, again, somebody fact check me, of course. But what you're doing in yoga nidra is you're taking people through specific practices that take them into these deeper brainwaves, right? So things like taking your body through opposites, like now you first imagine you feel really warm, and then imagine you feel really cold, and then imagine you feel really tense, and then you feel really relaxed, is just one of the stages you do. But if somebody can manage to retain just enough awareness to stay attached to your voice while you do this, they will enter the exact same brainwave state as REM sleep while retaining a little bit of consciousness. And in that state, you are able to essentially, I mean, I would call it colloquially self-hypnosis, but that's not quite what's happening. But you're able to implant an idea in your mind at that state that then when you come out the other side and you come back awake and you repeat that idea to yourself, it's the same as sympathetic magic. It's the same as like hypnosis. You've implanted this idea and can carry it with you because you've taken it into that theta wave state.
Right. Into that
and
wave.
lucid dreaming is the same. Like lucid dreaming ideally is that you are in that REM sleep state, but you have a thread of consciousness. And within that you can enact change. You can manifest in that space and create change.
Literally last night, I was in this, it was such a strange dream. It was weird. It was about trains and shit. Anyway, but like I remember being in my dream and having a question and being like, oh wait, I can ask this. And so I did.
Yes.
And it's like one of those things where I don't normally, like, I'm normally just along for the ride. But as soon as you said that, it made me think of, like, I remember thinking in my dream, well, how are you going to do that? Are you going to pull it by like locomotive? And like, I realized, wait, I can ask that. And so I said it. And like, as soon as you said it, I'm like, wow, that's one of those like reality slips into dreams. Now, in that same vein, have you ever had experience with sleep paralysis?
No, thank God. Thank God. The idea of it even just absolutely petrifies me.
I haven't had the one where like I see demons in the room. No.
I haven't even heard of that. Okay, that makes it extra scary. Cool.
It's extra scary. They feel like somebody's sitting on their chest, but not me.
No.
I feel like I can't breathe.
Oh my God.
For me, I feel like I can't move. I can't speak. It's very difficult to breathe, but it looks like I'm looking like this. Like I can barely open my eyes. So I'm looking through like my eyelashes. Everything is foggy, little bitty slits. And I swear to you, I can see my room. I can see what's happening. I'm in my bed. I'm in my space. Like I can even, if like Jacob's beside me, like I will try with all my might to make a noise, to move something. Like my muscles feel like they're super clenched. I can't move. It's like, I'm like, oh my God, please just wake me up. Please just wake me up. It's the scariest thing ever. I hate it, hate it, hate it.
Actually, listening to you describe that, I realized I I'm going to come back to Yoga Nidra actually, because when I would guide people in Yoga Nidra, I had to warn them, because this actually has happened to me. Now, it's not scary because I've had teachers that have warned me. Maybe that's why it never scared me. And I never connected it with sleep paralysis, but I bet you it's the same freaking thing. When you get deep enough into those brainwave patterns, if you get into that REM place, if you get into theta, even if you get, I think, the stage before that, your body is very, very heavy because your body has been fully relaxed and you are essentially in a sleep-like state. So if you wake up too quickly, in fact, one of the things you have to do with Yoga Nidra is you have to guide a very specific way back out, or it can really freak people out. Because if your mind wakes up too much before your body has come back,
that's what it
then
feels like.
You feel like you can't move. So I remember now that I used to have to warn people when I was guiding through Yoga Nidra that if you startle awake or if something happens and you kind of come up too quickly, you might feel for a minute, like for a second, like your body can't really move well. So just start with your toes. Always furthest extremities first. Always start with your toes or your fingers. See if you can get them to wiggle just a teeny bit, and then it'll start to come back. And that's actually how you guide people out of proper Yoga Nidra. Is you have to like really take them furthest away from their body in. But I bet you it's the same kind of thing. I bet you have entered that state and your mind has come up out of that state before your body is up and your brain is up out of that state.
That's exactly what it feels like. Like,
Yeah.
It's like my mind is awake. My body cannot move. It's like your body is still in paralysis and your mind is fully awake, and it's just trying desperately to get your body to wake up. But I feel like if I were to do something like Yoga Nidra, having the idea that someone is there with me and is not going to leave me in this state, I think I would do way better than being caught there by yourself, incapable of getting anyone's attention. You know, I gotta put my AC on real quick.
Oh, okay.
I know we're like 17, but like I'm starting to sweat.
I know Robert in the chat is in my Unicorn Fan membership. Robert, I'm pretty sure you're magical enough. And Dani, I know you are / were. There is a video on in my membership. I actually recorded a full-length Yoga Nidra for my members. So you can actually go into the member library, like go into my channel. If you're a member, you can go into the channel and search it up, and it's full length. So if you can get into the right space and turn that on headphones or something, you can experiment with what I mean by like going through all the different layers. And it's more powerful the more often you do it, especially if you listen to the same one over and over again, because if you listen to it once in the beginning, when you first do Yoga Nidra, like when you first go through that experience, most people just fall asleep. It's really hard to hold on to that thread of consciousness. The more you listen to the same script, Yoga Nidra, again and again and again, the better you'll be able to hold on to that thread of voice. So if you're in my channel thing, it is in there. Just go search it up. I've got a full length one. Otherwise, I would say if you want to look any up, like online, I would say any that are less than 45 to 50 minutes, give or take, are probably not taking you through all the levels. I've seen ones out there that are like 15, 20 minutes. And yeah, you can relax in 15, 20 minutes, but you are not getting somebody all the way down in and all the way back out in 15, 20 minutes. So if you want one, look for like traditional Yoga Nidra audios. There was, I actually first discovered it through a yoga podcast I was listening to. And she had a script and she took us through, and it was mind blowing. But anyways, that was what formed my passion for it. But I have a book on it, like from traditional teachers from like India that like to go through the phases, and I've read studies about it and seen pictures of brains like on Yoga Nidra. Like it's crazy. Yeah.
I love watching the things about brains on like meditation and stuff. I would love for someone to do, like, I swear I would be so down. Scientists, contact me. I would love to do a tarot reading, a past life reading, hooked up to something to see what fires off in the brain when we're doing these things.
Same, because I don't know about you, but like and I don't want to minimize any type of reading at all when I say this, but there is a state, right? There is first of all, just when I'm reading, my whole energy shifts. First of all, any kind of reading, and it doesn't matter if it's a video reading.
Jacob says you could almost feel it shift in the room. Has Peggy ever told you that?
No, I don't know if maybe she has. I'd have to ask her. But like, I feel like I'm in an altered state for starters.
I do.
But it's deeper depending on the type of reading I'm doing. So if I'm doing the past life soul card shit, like full on, I feel like a different human. Like I feel
like there are complete blinders. I am seeing nothing but what's coming out. It's bananas.
Yeah, that'd be super cool to see, because like the way I talk is different, the way I breathe is different, everything is
I
different.
will say stuff that I never say. Like,
Yeah.
what is it? How do you say? Is it
Oh,
colloquialisms?
Shannon says, yeah, like
What is
analogies. She said she had to have a 4-day EEG once, and we could see the moments I was in theta waves when I meditated. Yes.
Awesome.
Oh, Siddharth's work is incredible. If you get a chance to hear Siddharth talk, he's presented at some conferences. His talks are incredible. Neuroscience and any of the spiritual stuff, when you overlap those two things, it's fascinating. Or when you overlap like science, like quantum physics and magic, it's fascinating. That is like my favorite place to play, because I came to this whole world as somebody who could not get behind something I couldn't logic.
I grew up
So
Catholic. It was easy to logic it for me.
I had to be able to logic it to believe it. And then, so it's kind of like everything I do, my approach to tarot, my approach to metaphysics, my approach to spirituality, it always begins from a place where I can go, I can see how this could work, like in a literal sense, like in a whatever. And then from there, I'm able to explore the unexplainable. But I have to start somewhere concrete, and then I can go into all these wild, wondrous places. But I have to start from someplace that I can like get my feet on first.
I'm going to ask you a weird question right now then.
Okay, do it.
Do you have a lot of earth in your chart?
I don't think so, actually.
I have like,
I'll tell you.
I have like, I swear, basically none. It's ridiculous. But
No
I was
earth?
wondering if you start, like, if you have a tendency to want to start very grounded, if there is something in your chart that might speak to that.
I'll tell you my main stuff here. Hold on. Because I've talked about it before publicly, so I don't care. Okay, so if I look at Earth, no. I feel like no. I have nothing in Capricorn. I have nothing in Virgo. My Mars and Chiron are both in Taurus.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
Me neither, but that's fine. I know a little bit about the Chiron actually, but Chiron's like the wounded healer. So that's in Taurus.
Okay.
That makes sense to me. I'm not going to get into houses because that just gets wild. The craziest placement in my chart is actually that I am Gemini moon, and
I'm Gemini rising.
Okay, so my moon and my Jupiter, which Jupiter expands, right? My moon and my Jupiter are in the exact same degree. They're both at 22 degrees in Gemini. Or no, excuse me, let me make sure I'm looking at the right sign. Is it Libra? No, it's Gemini. What does Libra look like? Yeah, okay, they're both in Gemini.
Okay, what are your big three? You have Cancer.
Okay, so I'm Cancer sun, Libra rising, Gemini moon with that Jupiter right on top of my moon.
Jupiter right on top.
And so I think my air has a lot of like, and my Venus is also in Gemini.
My Cancer has a lot. I'm Cancer sun, I'm Sagittarius moon, and I'm Gemini rising. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Sagittarius moon. Yeah.
But my Venus is in Cancer, which is exalted in Cancer.
Oh, yeah, my Venus is still in Gemini. Yeah, my Venus is in Gemini. So it's interesting because I feel like what's funny is my my Mercury, which is communication, is in Leo, and I don't think anybody would be surprised by that at all. Like communication spotlight, like yes please, like let me just talk and like people listen. That's cool. I like that. It's like explains why I like public speaking, even though I'm terrified of it at the same time. Like it makes sense. I don't know. But it's like that.
I love it.
But I wonder how much of it is a Gemini. But yeah, Earth-wise, the only placements I have, that's it. Just that Mars, which Mars is like, I think your aggression and your how you argue and like conflict, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe, or like where you're
it's it's the war, like it's a lot of
Yeah. I wonder, isn't Pisces kind of a dreamy? Oh, it doesn't matter because I don't think I have anything in Pisces either. Never mind. No.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I feel like I have the most air placements. I only have 2 earth placements. I have 3 fire placements, 3 water placements. So it's funny because I always talk about myself as like a watery person, but I clearly have much more air in my chart than I have anything else.
You're an airhead.
I'm apparently, yes, I am an airhead.
I
Oh,
showed up just in time.
I have a question for you. When I do the readings, when I do like the past life soul cards, like the really intense readings,
Yeah.
how did you word it, Dani?
Does it feel like there's a shift in the room?
Yeah, does it feel like there's an energetic like shift in the room? Like I know I change a little, but yes, it does feel like that. Because Peggy was saying that's how Jacob describes it when she's, or
Dani
did I say
said that's
Dani, not
said
Peggy?
Peggy,
Dani says that's how Jacob describes
Somebody
it.
says somebody
Yeah.
describes it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
I don't know if can you hear her?
you get a lot more serious and to the point in a way that you're not usually.
Yeah.
And when it's over, you don't remember.
I don't remember anything.
I don't remember either.
Yeah.
I had someone ask me like, "Oh, we did this reading, and like, can you remember what it?" I was like,
"Remember when you're doing readings either." So.
Yeah, no, that's true. But it does feel like a deeper state for sure. Becky says that makes a lot of sense, all the air, because it sounds like you want to understand the logic part first. Yeah, it's about the logic of it.
The questions from you. Yeah.
I got a lot of air. Okay.
A lot of that makes sense.
She's having a moment. Don't mind her. It's fine.
Listen, I got questions too. Like, if anyone's got questions, it's me. I will ask. And like, poor Jacob,
I want to
I feel so
understand.
bad.
I want to intellectualize. So that does make sense. Yeah, it's more air than earth. That makes sense.
Yeah,
because it's
and that's my rising.
But
I got to know.
Like a mantra for you.
Did you hear Peggy? I want to understand is like a mantra for you. That's what she said.
It is having a whole heyday. I'm like, I got questions.
Yeah, Mars says your action, by the way. Okay,
but you're super emotional about the things that you want to understand.
Yeah,
that makes it even more fun.
Yeah, I'm just a ball of fun. Yeah. Dani and I are so alike in so many ways. Oh my god,
it's ridiculous.
That is insane. Yeah, it's funny. Me learning my rising sign clarified a lot too, because I never thought of myself as like an air person. I'm like, oh, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I do, but like Libra is at the forefront. So like my wanting to like see all perspectives always in every situation to my own detriment. Stop, shush. The looks I am getting. Like that's such a thing. Anyways, listen. Anyway,
it is true. I know. It's just like, but that's another thing that's been throughout time. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
The connection to the stars in that way.
Yeah.
Still the same kind of idea that we are 100%. Somehow connected with all celestial bodies, all the stars, and all the universe. Yeah. It's
what about
so
the theory
crazy.
that stars, or have you ever considered the possibility of connection between different levels? This is where we get into some starseed stuff that I don't know how I feel about. So I'm literally just curious.
I know I'm very iffy about starseed stuff, but I don't know.
Yeah, I was like, but do you think it's possible that at certain levels of our soul evolution, like we're talking about whether or not we come back, and like when we come back and how much we come back or whatever, that at a certain kind of evolution we might be like, do you think incarnating in other universes, or do you see it all happening here on Earth? Like, how do you picture that aspect?
As crazy as it is, like, we talk about like, oh, there's all these aliens and weird places and weird, like, I feel like when I tap in, whatever, everything, while it might not be the same time and place, or it might not be Earth itself, everything has a very similar feel to it. So it almost is like, I would equate it to like, I guess would be like almost like a parallel
universe,
space, but different. Like kind of like when you think of the Mandela effect.
Yeah.
Right. Like where that. Like you're in a place, but it's different. I mean, it's similar, but it's different.
Yeah, totally. I think I'm the same. I can't imagine myself like incarnating, nor have I ever felt like that would feel true for me, that I will have had past lives in other, like as an alien. I don't know how else to say that. Like I can't.
That's kind of where I'm at too. I can't. It doesn't feel that way to me.
Yeah.
Even when people talk about like Atlantis or Lemuria or whatever, like that still feels like here but different. And I know they were like supposed to be here, but 100%. Like it doesn't feel like it's here. It feels like it's here but different. Like, I
But
don't
see,
think
here,
it
but
was
different. Like Atlantis,
here.
Lemuria, and all that stuff. I can totally see past life connections too.
Yes.
But I couldn't if it was like another planet.
No. It's like,
Weirdly.
again, it's like it might be a parallel space, a different,
Yeah.
like, I don't know. It's so hard to describe. It's so hard to like put my finger on what it feels, but it feels like it's just similar. It might not have happened on Earth itself, but it's
Like
still like
maybe
Earth.
like a parallel Earth, parallel
like a
timeline
parallel
Earth,
Earth, or like a
yeah,
twin, almost like having like that kind of twin energy
like
where
that
like
quantum
we can
entanglement.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of where it feels like. It doesn't feel like
Yeah.
other planetary things.
Yes.
I don't know. It's weird to describe, but no, I don't know if I feel like
Yes.
that.
I totally get what you mean. I don't know what I learned it at one point. I think what my real sky sun sign was. Maybe my real sky sun and moon, but I can't remember, and I don't know how to look it up. But that messes with my head. The whole real sky versus Western astrology already like confuses me.
Oh, I looked
but
into it for a bit and I was so confused. I was like, no, I can't.
I'm just gonna stick with the Western. But yeah, masteringthezodiac.com is a great place to find your real sky. Oh, okay. Let me just pull it up. Mastering the Zodiac. Masteringthezodiac.com. I'm gonna look that up later. I just want to bookmark it.
Yeah.
.com. There. Cool. Oh my god. This is such a fun chat.
Oh my god, I know.
We could do this all damn day, but you probably have somewhere to go, don't you?
Yeah. I'm going to Trader Joe's, y'all. I'm so excited. We have to travel.
Bring me with you. Put me in your
Come with
bag.
me.
I'll ride in the trunk.
Oh my
care. I
god.
want to go to
Can't
Trader
wait.
Joe's. I haven't been in years.
Jacob was sitting down outside while I was drinking my coffee, and he was like pulling up all the new stuff. He's like, oh my god, look at what they have. I'm like, oh, I can't wait. So we're going to grab all kinds of goodies.
What's your favorite noodles from there? You were talking about earlier.
Oh my gosh, they're the squiggly noodles.
Yeah, I had.
They're like the
really
squiggly ones, and they're like the soy spicy.
It's like a sweet soy.
So good.
Oh, they have more flavors than just one. I think I only tried one when I was there before I got a pack, and they
I
were
think
like
there's
sweet
only
soy.
one.
Yeah,
but it wasn't. I don't think it was sweet soy. This was
maybe
like
it was spicy soy.
Spicy soy, maybe.
It might have been spicy soy.
Regardless, I get a couple of packs because I could eat it every day.
They're so good.
But I have OCD like that. Like when I get on a certain food, I will eat
that's
it.
your food.
That's my food, and I haven't had it in so long. Like I feel like I'm withering away. Yeah.
Trader Joe's is why I'm addicted to the spice crunch, chili crunch type stuff, because their chili crunch is the best. It's so good. It's like mild enough. You can just like freaking pile it on there. I found one that's similar up here. It's not quite the same. It's a little bit.
I found one at Target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's doing the trick, but it's not the same. It's not the same. I do miss the Trader Joe's one, but yeah, chili onion crunch is what it's called. So good.
Chili onion crunch. Yes. And I don't like onions, but I eat the hell out of that. Now, let me correct. I like the flavor of onions. I don't like onions. The texture, and I'm not going to.
No.
No. I'll cook with them, whatever, but I'm not going to crunch on them. I can't.
No.
No. I can't do it.
Like, no. Oh
Bell peppers, can't do it. Can't do it. I love the flavor. Love the flavor. Don't.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's fair. That's valid. Oh my god.
Oh, the onion salt. We had the jalapeno salt. Oh, so good.
Oh no. Their stuff is bad. Like I could literally go down to the States just for a trip to Trader Joe's. But
we travel
border lineups though.
All the way to Baton Rouge. We're literally going to Trader Joe's and turning around and coming back home. Like this is the level.
This is a valid way to spend your day.
I agree. I completely agree.
I would like a glide after you get back with your haul, please. And thank you.
Absolutely.
So that I can vicariously.
Hell yeah.
Or
I'm always excited to show off all my stuff. Be like, grocery haul.
The best. I don't know why, but when I watch people's vlogs on like YouTube, that's my favorite part. Show me your groceries. I want to see what you bought at Costco. I want to see what you bought at like the grocery store or Target. We don't have Target here. I want to know. What are you buying? Yeah.
I don't like our Target anymore.
We had one. You're in Canada and it all went because it didn't have all the good American Target stuff and all the good American Target prices. So people were like, this is garbage. Give us our regular stores back.
I mean, yeah. But I don't know. They changed a lot of stuff, and I don't know.
Not the same. I miss Fred Meyer too. I like Fred Meyer.
We never had a Fred Meyer's, but we went to that in when we were in Anchorage, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe when we were in we were in Alaska. And they have the Fred Meyer's, and they have fucking everything in there.
It's amazing.
You can like buy a refrigerator, get a fishing license, and get some groceries. I'm like, what?
And clothes all in the same store.
And it has legitimately every single thing, and it blew my mind. I was like,
it's like a mall, but in a
Walmart
store.
was a wild, but Fred Meyer's.
No, Fred Meyer's is its own thing. It literally, it's like if you took them all and like put it all in one store, that's kind of like, they have a jewelry kiosk. They have like just whatever you need.
Sporting goods. I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You heard it here first. Upcoming Danny Trader Joe Hall's video. At least a private one just for me. maybe just for me. Not me being like mine, all mine. No, I'm just kidding. Do what you want. Yeah.
Oh my god, I know we got a little bit off topic for a while, but I mean, yeah. You see, I'm telling you, Trader Joe's Hall is where it's at.
Yeah, it was more me reminding Danny that she had places to be, and I didn't want to keep her too late.
I know.
So good.
Yes, we we're about 1:36. We're about that time. But you guys, do you have anything else that you want us to maybe talk about before we go? Like one last topic or anything? Let us know, because we're gonna wrap it up if we're here, because we went on a tangent, and if we do this again, it's gonna be another hour and a half.
It's gonna be we're gonna be like, what is time? Yeah.
What is time?
Yeah. Oh, so good.
Oh my gosh. We're gonna have to go back. I'm gonna have to see all these comments. I missed, I swear, 90% of the chat, you guys.
We got so engaged with the like chat in general. There was some good comments from Ange about REM sleep that I totally thought were really, really interesting and useful. There's a really good book. Oh, there's a really good book called I've Been Here Before by Sarah Rigler on Amazon, focused on reincarnation and the trauma that's carried over from the Holocaust. That was one reference.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. So good.
Oh, and you have Monsters and Mayhem today too, huh?
Yeah, we're doing that at 1, so I've still got some time. But yeah, we have got that coming up. I'll grab some lunch in between. I'll drag Peggy out, go get some food.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, this has been so much fun. Thank you for joining us on this crazy, wild tangent of a conversation. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, your theories. If you got videos, I think you can post them in my comments. But I'll check and I'll try to add them in. But I think you can put them down in the comments, or let us know what to search. I love looking up this stuff. I love hearing what you guys have to say. So let us know.
Yes, keep us posted, and we'll keep those in mind too for future chats as well.
Yes,
especially if you have requests for things you want us to just bring up and babble about, because y'all know we love to talk. We
love to talk. We will talk all day.
It's true. Oh,
awesome. Well, thank you so much, you guys. We'll see you all very soon. Sending all of our love. Bye, guys.
Bye.